You're sitting in a sprint planning session and something feels off. Nobody can name it, but the energy is different. That feeling is a signal. And this video is about what it's actually pointing to. I have been building software for over a decade. I have been a founder, a CTO, an early engineer. I have been in the room when startups were flying, and I have been in the room when the wheels came off, sometimes on the same day. And here is the thing about startups running out of money. It is almost never a surprise in hindsight. The signs are there weeks, sometimes months, before the crisis meeting, before the all hands where someone cries, before the Slack message that says, "We need to talk about the company's direction." The problem is, those signs are subtle. They are easy to rationalize, and founders, especially technical founders, are very good at staying heads down and missing them entirely. So let's talk about 5 of them. The specific, quiet indicators that the runway is shorter than anyone is letting on. I am not talking about obvious stuff like missed payroll. I am talking about the signals that show up when there is still time to do something about it. Barely. Let's start with the most obvious one that somehow nobody ever calls out directly. The hiring pause that has no end date. Every startup goes through stretches where they are not hiring. That is normal. But there is a specific flavor of hiring freeze that means something different. You had open roles. Those roles disappeared from the careers page quietly. Or they are still there, but nobody is getting interviewed. And when you ask about it, the answer is something like, "We are being strategic about headcount right now." Or, "We want to make sure the next hire is the right one." Strategic. That word does a lot of heavy lifting in dying startups. Here is what is actually happening. The company modeled out the burn rate against the remaining runway and realized that adding 2 senior engineers would cut 3 months off their timeline. So the roles are frozen. Not paused. Frozen. But nobody wants to say that, because saying it out loud changes the energy and possibly triggers the exact attrition they are trying to avoid. If the hiring pause started around the same time as a board meeting or a fundraising round that is still in progress, pay attention. That is not a coincidence. Here is another one that took me embarrassingly long to learn to read properly. The CEO starts talking about optionality. There is a very specific shift in language that happens when leadership knows the current plan is not going to work, and they are trying to buy time while they figure out what plan B is. The roadmap conversations get vague. The North Star metric that everyone was obsessed with last quarter suddenly needs refinement. And the CEO starts using words like optionality, pivoting the narrative, and exploring strategic partnerships. Strategic partnerships is usually the one that should make your stomach drop. In my experience, a startup that suddenly becomes very interested in enterprise partnerships or white label deals or revenue sharing with bigger companies is often doing one of 2 things. Either they genuinely found a new go-to-market angle, which is real and does happen, or they are trying to manufacture a story that buys them another few months of investor patience while they scramble for a bridge round. The tell is the timeline. If the partnership conversations are urgent and vague at the same time, it is the second one. Urgency plus vagueness equals someone is scared. Number 3, and this one is subtle in a way that sneaks up on you. Suddenly, every decision needs the CEO's sign-off. In a healthy startup, there is usually a reasonable level of spending autonomy distributed across the team. Engineering leads can approve SaaS tools. Marketing can run experiments without a 3-week approval chain. Product can commission user research without it becoming a whole thing. Then one day, that changes, quietly. Nobody sends an email saying all discretionary spending now requires executive approval. It just starts happening. Your request for a new Datadog tier takes 2 weeks and comes back declined. The AWS credits conversation that used to be a 5-minute Slack thread now involves a finance person you have never spoken to before. What is happening is that someone, probably the CFO or the CEO, has gone line by line through the burn and has decided that no pound or dollar leaves the building without their eyes on it. That is a cash preservation move. It is a rational one. But it is also a signal that the margin for error on the runway has gotten very thin. when the approval chain tightens across the whole company at the same time. That is not a process improvement. That is triage. This next one you probably will not catch unless you are paying close attention. But if you are an early employee or a founding team member who used to see those investor updates, listen up. The investor updates stop being detailed. Healthy startups send regular investor updates, monthly or quarterly. Good ones include the metrics that matter: MRR, churn, burn rate, runway, pipeline. They are specific because they have to be. Investors are watching the numbers and founders know it. But there is a very noticeable shift that happens when those numbers stop being good. The updates get shorter. The specific metrics start getting replaced by narrative. We had a strong month of learnings. The team is energized by the new direction. We are seeing promising signals in enterprise. Suddenly, the update reads more like a vibe than a report. Some founders do this consciously because they are managing investor sentiment. Some do it because they genuinely cannot face writing the real numbers down. Either way, the update that used to have a table of metrics and now has 3 paragraphs of qualitative commentary is a red flag. Someone is buying time, and you do not buy time unless you need it. And finally, the last sign, and honestly, the one that should make everything click into place. The senior people start leaving and nobody replaces them. This one is the most visible and yet somehow still the most misread. When a VP of engineering leaves a startup after 2 years, there are a dozen plausible explanations: new opportunity, burnout, personal reasons, vesting cliff. Any of these might be true. So people tend to give it the benefit of the doubt. But here is what you actually need to watch. What happens after they leave? In a well-funded startup with confidence in the future, you feel the urgency to backfill that role. The job posting goes up within a week. The CEO talks about it in all hands. There is a clear sense that losing a senior person is a problem to be solved immediately. In a startup that is running low, what happens is a long pause. The role gets absorbed across the team for now. The hiring plan is being reassessed. Months go by. The work gets redistributed. Nobody talks about it. Senior people are expensive. If the company is not replacing them, it is because the company cannot afford to. Or it has quietly decided it needs to extend runway by however many months that salary buys. That calculation only gets made when the runway is already uncomfortable. 1 departure with no backfill is an event. 2 is a pattern. 3 and you already know. Here is the thing. None of this is about doom scrolling your way through every startup you work at. Most of these signals in isolation mean nothing. Startups are chaotic. Decisions are messy. Founders make weird calls all the time for reasons that have nothing to do with money. But when you start seeing 2 or 3 of these at the same time, that is different. That is a pattern. And a pattern tells you something is being managed that is not being communicated. If you are a founder watching this, the takeaway is simple. Transparency is not weakness. Your team will find out. They always do. And the ones who find out from you, rather than from the signs, will be the ones who stay to help you fix it. If you are an early employee or engineer, the takeaway is learn to read the room. Not to panic, but to make informed decisions about your own career. You owe yourself that much. If this hit close to home, you know what to do. Subscribe, drop a comment, tell me which one you have actually lived through. I read them.